Imagine walking into a modern gym. You see rows of treadmills, stacks of dumbbells, benches, cables, squat racks, machines, mirrors, bright lights, and dozens of people moving from one exercise to another. To a customer, it looks like a place designed for fitness. But to a gym owner, every piece of equipment represents something very different. It is an investment. A treadmill isn't just a treadmill. It's an asset that needs to generate revenue. A squat rack isn't simply a piece of steel. It's part of a business model. And a bench press isn't only an exercise. It can be one of the reasons someone decides to pay for a gym membership every month. This raises an interesting question. What if we looked at a gym not from the perspective of someone trying to get stronger, but from the perspective of the person trying to make money from the gym? And what if we examined 10 of the most common exercises and discovered how each one influences the economics of running a gym? Because behind every popular exercise is a surprisingly complicated business decision. Gym owners have to think about equipment costs, floor space, maintenance, member demand, safety, replacement cycles, electricity, staffing, and most importantly, whether that equipment helps attract and retain paying members. So today, we're going inside the economics of a gym by looking at 10 exercises that help keep the entire business moving. Number 10, the treadmill run. Let's start with one of the most recognizable pieces of equipment in almost every commercial gym, the treadmill. Running seems simple. A person gets on, presses a button, and starts walking or running. But to a gym owner, a treadmill can be surprisingly expensive real estate. Commercial treadmills can cost thousands of dollars depending on their quality, brand, features, and intended usage. And unlike a dumbbell sitting on a rack, a treadmill contains motors, belts, electronics, displays, sensors, and other mechanical components that can eventually require servicing. There is also electricity. Every time members use those machines, the gym is consuming power. And yet, gym owners continue buying them. Why? Because cardio is one of the largest reasons people join gyms. A beginner might not know how to perform a deadlift. They might not want to use a complicated machine, but almost everyone understands walking or running. That makes the treadmill an extremely accessible product, and accessibility matters in business. A gym doesn't make money because one person uses an expensive machine once. It makes money because hundreds of members collectively pay monthly fees, while only a fraction of them are using the equipment at the exact same time. This is one of the most important economics concepts in the gym business: utilization. If a gym has 50 treadmills but only 5 are regularly used, the owner has invested heavily in equipment that isn't producing enough value. But if the treadmills are constantly occupied during peak hours, those same machines become extremely productive assets. The challenge is finding the balance. Too little equipment creates overcrowding. Too much equipment wastes capital and floor space. And floor space is one of the gym owner's most valuable resources. Number 9, cycling. Next comes cycling. Stationary bikes are another popular piece of gym equipment because they offer members a low-impact form of cardio. For the business, however, cycling has an interesting advantage. Compared with some larger strength machines, stationary bikes can allow a gym to provide multiple cardio stations without consuming enormous amounts of floor space. But again, the economics depend on utilization. Imagine a gym spends a significant amount of money filling a room with premium bikes. If members love cycling classes, that equipment could become an important revenue-generating asset. But if the room stays empty most of the day, the owner has essentially turned valuable floor space into an expensive storage area. This is why successful gym owners don't simply ask, "What equipment is popular?" They ask a more important question. What equipment is popular with the specific customers who pay us? A bodybuilding gym and a budget neighborhood fitness center may have completely different economics of equipment. A luxury fitness club might invest heavily in premium cycling studios. A strength-focused gym might spend that same money on racks, plates, dumbbells, and specialty equipment. The equipment follows the customer, and the customer follows the experience. Number 8. Pull-ups. Now we move to an exercise that is surprisingly inexpensive from an equipment perspective, the pull-up. A pull-up requires relatively little, a bar. That's it. From the customer's perspective, it's one of the simplest exercises in the gym. From the owner's perspective, that's actually fascinating. A piece of equipment can be relatively inexpensive to install while serving hundreds or even thousands of members over its lifetime. This is where the economics become different from expensive machines. A pull-up station can occupy relatively little space and support multiple exercises. Members can perform pull-ups, chin-ups, hanging leg raises, and other movements using essentially the same structure. That means one investment can support multiple activities. And this is exactly what gym owners want: high versatility, high utilization, low complexity. But there's another economic advantage. Exercises like pull-ups make a gym feel functional. They contribute to the perception that the facility isn't simply a collection of machines. It's a place where people can actually train. And perception is valuable. A gym membership is an intangible product. You aren't buying something you can take home. You're buying access. Access to equipment, access to space, access to an environment, access to a community, and access to a lifestyle. That means the equipment doesn't have to directly generate money every time someone touches it. Instead, it contributes to the overall reason members continue paying their monthly fees. Number 7. Shoulder press. Next is the shoulder press. Whether performed with dumbbells, a barbell, or a dedicated machine, shoulder pressing is one of the classic upper body movements. From a business perspective, this exercise highlights the importance of equipment variety. Not every member wants to train the same way. Some prefer free weights, others prefer machines. Some want guided movement, others want maximum freedom. A gym that offers only one style of training risks losing customers who want something different. This is why equipment selection is essentially a portfolio decision. Think about a gym's equipment like an investment portfolio. If all your money goes into one category, you become vulnerable. If you invest in cardio, strength machines, free weights, functional training, and specialized equipment, you can appeal to a broader customer base. But diversification has a cost. Every additional piece of equipment requires capital. It needs space. It may require maintenance. It needs cleaning. And eventually, it will need replacement. So the goal isn't to buy everything. The goal is to buy the right things. And that's where customer behavior becomes incredibly important. Number 6, lat pull down. The lat pull down is another classic gym exercise. It's especially popular because it allows people to train their back without requiring them to perform a bodyweight pull-up. For beginners, this matters. A person who cannot perform a pull-up can still use a lat pull-down machine. That makes a machine useful across multiple fitness levels. And from a business perspective, equipment that serves beginners can be extremely valuable. Why? Because beginners represent a large portion of potential gym customers. Most people don't walk into a gym already knowing how to use every machine. They need equipment that feels understandable. They need instructions. They need a sense of progress. And they need to feel that they belong. A good gym, therefore, isn't just selling equipment. It's selling confidence. A machine like the lat pull-down can contribute to that experience because the movement is relatively easy to understand and adjust. This is a hidden part of gym economics. The easier a facility is to use, the more likely a new customer may feel comfortable returning. And retention is often more important than simply getting new members. Number 5, dumbbell bench press. Now we reach one of the most iconic exercises in fitness, the bench press. But let's look specifically at the dumbbell version. Dumbbells are interesting because they are among the most versatile pieces of equipment in a gym. One set of dumbbells can support dozens of exercises: chest presses, shoulder presses, rows, lunges, curls, squats, and many more. This versatility makes dumbbells economically powerful. A gym owner isn't buying a single-purpose machine. They're buying an entire ecosystem of possible exercises. But dumbbells create another problem. They require space. As a gym grows, the number of dumbbells often grows too. And heavier dumbbells require stronger racks, stronger flooring, and better organization. They also experience wear. Members drop them, they collide, they get scratched, handles become worn. Rubber can deteriorate. So while dumbbells look simple, maintaining a large collection is part of the operating cost. Yet they're still incredibly valuable because they satisfy a huge variety of members. And that leads us to one of the most important principles in gym economics. Versatility can increase the return on equipment investment. Number 4. Squats. Few exercises represent strength training better than the squat. But the squat is more than an exercise. It's an ecosystem. A serious squat area may require racks, barbells, weight plates, platforms, safety arms, flooring, storage, and sufficient space around each station. That means one exercise can create a surprisingly large capital investment. And here's where things become interesting. A squat rack doesn't just support squats. It can also be used for bench pressing, overhead pressing, barbell rows, rack pulls, and many other exercises. So the economics of a rack are much stronger than they initially appear. A rack is essentially infrastructure. Like a kitchen in a restaurant, it supports many different activities. But racks also create a capacity problem. If a gym has 10 squat racks and 20 people want to use them at the same time, the equipment becomes a bottleneck. Members wait, they become frustrated, and frustration can eventually affect retention. That's why peak hour capacity is critical. Gym owners aren't only deciding how much equipment they can afford, they're deciding how much equipment they need during the busiest hours. A gym might be almost empty at 10 in the morning and completely packed at 6 in the evening. The business has to survive both realities. Number 3. Deadlifts. Now we arrive at one of the most demanding exercises in the gym, the deadlift. From an economic perspective, deadlifting creates a unique challenge. Heavy weights create heavy wear. Dropping weights repeatedly can damage flooring. Barbells experience stress. Weight plates take impacts, and the surrounding area needs to be designed with safety and durability in mind. That's why specialized lifting platforms and durable flooring can become important investments for strength-focused facilities. But there is a business opportunity here. Serious lifters often have strong preferences. They care about equipment quality. They care about barbells. They care about plates. They care about racks. They care about space. And they may be willing to pay more for a gym that provides the environment they want. This creates an interesting pricing strategy. A gym doesn't necessarily need to compete only on being cheap. It can compete on being specialized. A facility that becomes known as the place for serious strength training can build a loyal customer base. And loyal customers are valuable because when a member feels that a gym is perfectly suited for their goals, switching to another gym becomes harder. That's retention economics. Number 2. Cable exercises. Now we get to one of the most economically interesting categories. Cable machines are incredibly versatile. With the right attachments, one station can support exercises for the chest, back, shoulders, arms, legs, and core. That means a single piece of equipment can serve a huge number of training needs. From an owner's perspective, that's extremely attractive. Imagine 2 pieces of equipment. Machine A performs one exercise. Machine B supports 20 different exercises. If both require similar investment and floor space, Machine B may provide much greater flexibility. That's why cable systems are so common in commercial gyms. They allow many members to train different muscle groups without requiring dozens of separate machines. But versatility creates demand, and demand creates queues. If everyone wants to use the cable machine at 6 p.m., one machine isn't enough. the owner must decide whether to buy another. This is where gym economics becomes a balancing act. Adding another machine increases capacity, but it also increases cost. The owner must estimate whether the additional capacity will help retain enough members or attract enough new customers to justify the investment. In other words, equipment purchasing is a bet on future demand, and not every bet pays off. Number 1, the bench press. And finally, we reach the exercise that may have more cultural recognition than almost any other strength movement: the bench press. The bench press is simple: a bench, a barbell, some weight plates, and yet it has become a symbol of strength training. From the perspective of a gym business, the bench press represents something bigger than the movement itself. It represents identity. A beginner may join a gym because they want to lose weight. Another person may want bigger muscles. Another may want to become stronger. Another may simply want a place to train after work. The gym has to serve all of them, and the bench press is one of the exercises that connects the beginner with the experienced lifter. But that creates capacity challenges. Benches take up floor space. Barbells need storage. Weight plates need organization. Safety becomes important, and during peak hours, benches can become some of the most heavily contested equipment in the facility. That's why a smart gym owner doesn't simply count how many machines they own. They analyze how members move through the gym. Which equipment is used most, at what time, by which demographic, for how long, and how frequently. This is essentially data-driven asset management. The real economics behind the gym. Now, step back for a moment. We've looked at 10 exercises, but the bigger story isn't really about squats, deadlifts, treadmills, or bench presses. It's about how a gym turns physical assets into recurring revenue. And that is the secret behind the business model. A gym has enormous upfront costs. You need a location. You need renovations. You need flooring. You need lighting. You need bathrooms and changing areas. You need equipment. You may need employees. You need insurance. You need software. You need marketing. And then you have recurring costs, such as rent, utilities, maintenance, cleaning, salaries, repairs, and equipment replacement. Yet the customer may pay a relatively small monthly membership fee. So how does the business work? Volume. A gym needs enough members to spread fixed costs across a large customer base. This is why membership-based businesses can be powerful. The gym doesn't need every member to visit every day. In fact, from a purely capacity perspective, it may be impossible for every member to show up simultaneously. Instead, the business depends on patterns of usage. Some members come every day. Some come 3 times a week. Some come once a week. Some stop coming but continue paying. This creates a fascinating economic phenomenon. The gym sells access to a physical facility, but the revenue comes from a recurring membership relationship. That means retention is everything. If customers constantly cancel, the gym has to spend more money acquiring new customers. Advertising costs money. Sales staff cost money. Promotions cost money. Discounts reduce revenue. But if a member stays for years, the economics become much more attractive. This is why a successful gym isn't simply trying to sell memberships, it's trying to create habits. And that's where the 10 exercises come back into the story. People return when they feel progress. They return when they enjoy the environment. They return when equipment is available. They return when the gym fits their lifestyle. And they return when they feel like the membership is worth paying for. The hidden cost of floor space. Imagine you have a 10,000 square foot facility. That sounds huge, but suddenly you divide it between reception, bathrooms, changing rooms, cardio, machines, free weights, functional training, storage, walking space, and emergency access. The usable training area becomes much smaller. Every square foot has an opportunity cost. If you place a piece of equipment in one location, you can't use that same space for something else. So gym owners have to think like real estate investors. What should occupy this space? A treadmill, a cable machine, a squat rack, a group training area, more lockers, a stretching zone. The answer depends on what produces the greatest value. This is why a gym can have expensive equipment and still struggle financially. The problem may not be the equipment. The problem may be inefficient use of space. The membership equation. Let's imagine a fictional gym. Suppose it has 1,500 members. If the average member pays $40 per month, the gym generates around $60,000 in monthly membership revenue before considering additional income. But that revenue doesn't automatically become profit. The gym still has rent, employees, utilities, maintenance, cleaning, marketing, insurance, taxes, equipment replacement, and unexpected expenses. Now imagine the gym improves retention. Instead of members staying for 6 months, they stay for 12 months. The gym has dramatically increased the lifetime value of each customer without necessarily doubling its advertising budget. That is why the economics of retention can be more powerful than simply chasing new customers. And equipment plays a role in retention. If members arrive and every bench is occupied, they become frustrated. If machines are broken for weeks, they become frustrated. If the gym is overcrowded, they become frustrated. If the equipment is outdated, they may look elsewhere. So equipment isn't simply a cost. It's part of customer retention. The equipment investment trap. But there is another danger. A gym owner can easily become obsessed with buying more equipment. A new machine arrives. Members are excited. The gym looks better. But excitement doesn't always equal profitability. Suppose a machine costs $10,000. If only a handful of members use it every week, was it a good investment? Maybe. If those members are high-value customers who would leave without it, perhaps the machine is justified. But if it sits unused, the owner has tied up capital that could have been used elsewhere. This is why the smartest gym owners aren't necessarily the ones with the most equipment. They're the ones who understand their customers. They know what members want. They track usage. They monitor complaints. They study peak hours. And they make investment decisions based on evidence. Why some gyms make more money than others. Two gyms can have almost identical membership prices and completely different financial results. Why? Because the business model depends on much more than price. One gym might have extremely high rent. Another might own its building. One may spend heavily on staff. Another operates with a lean team. One constantly replaces equipment. Another buys durable commercial equipment designed to last. One may attract customers through expensive advertising. Another grows through referrals. One may have high member turnover. Another may have loyal members who stay for years. The difference is operational efficiency, and that's what makes gym ownership much harder than it appears from the outside. From the outside, it looks like buy equipment, rent a building, sell memberships, make money. In reality, it's acquire customers, design the facility, manage capacity, maintain equipment, control operating costs, retain members, optimize pricing, manage employees, handle repairs, market the business, and constantly adapt to changing customer preferences. The weights are only one part of the equation. Final takeaway. So what can 10 exercises teach us about the economics of owning a gym? Quite a lot. The treadmill teaches us about accessibility and utilization. Cycling teaches us about space and specialized demand. Pull-ups demonstrate the value of low-cost, versatile equipment. Shoulder presses show why equipment variety matters. Lat pull-downs reveal the importance of serving beginners. Dumbbells demonstrate the power of versatility. Squats show how infrastructure can support multiple movements. Deadlifts reveal the costs and opportunities of serving serious athletes. Cable machines demonstrate how one asset can serve many different customer needs. And the bench press shows how equipment can become part of a gym's identity. But underneath all 10 exercises is one fundamental principle. A gym doesn't make money simply because it owns equipment. It makes money when that equipment helps create a valuable experience that people are willing to pay for month after month. The strongest gym isn't necessarily the one with the biggest collection of machines. It's the one that understands the relationship between equipment, space, customers, pricing, utilization, and retention. Because every dumbbell has a cost, every machine occupies space, every repair reduces profit, every empty membership slot represents lost revenue, and every loyal member represents recurring income. That's the real economics of owning a gym. What looks like a room full of weights is actually a carefully balanced financial machine. And the next time you walk into a gym and see someone performing a simple bench press, squat, pull-up, or treadmill run, remember, they're not just exercising. They're using an asset that someone invested thousands of dollars to provide. And behind that workout is an entire business trying to answer one question. Can this equipment keep people coming back long enough to make the investment profitable? That is the business behind the workout.